podcast where we share games. I'm your host, Zach Short.
And I'm Tyler Barrett. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we're continuing today in our series on horror. We're doing a big old survey on horror. We're trying to figure out all the different aspects, all the different ways you can approach it, and we're approaching it from some very interesting angles, quite literally, today.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to be talking about some indie hits today, specifically Lone Survivor and Darkwood, and we're really excited. But talk to me about this beer.
Yes, so we have the Fest beer from Listerman in Cincinnati. This is it's basically an Oktoberfest. It's a German-style party pills. So that's what we got here.
All my pills are party pills.
All your pills are party pills.
No, all of my pills are just Tums.
Just old man.
Yeah, just essentially all of them should be assorted into MTWTH in extremely large letters.
That was a loud swallow.
Yeah, I'm so glad we all got to hear that. That was delightful. No, this is good.
It
actually has a little bit of like sourness for it, which is weird for an Oktoberfest.
It does. I haven't had an Oktoberfest in at least 2 years. I kind of, they were becoming the same thing, or just getting.
I think like
old.
if you think about German beer in general, like they don't do craft. This has been beer for 100 years. You know, like it's just that's how it works in Germany. But I love that. There are, what is that one? Berliner Weisses. Berliner Weiss beers, in Germany, it's a kid's drink. You just put a little bit of simple syrup in there, and all of a sudden it becomes this kid's drink that you serve them at like festivals and stuff, like carnivals and, that kind of thing. So it's pretty interesting. Different culture. It's awesome.
Very different culture, yes.
Yeah, but I don't know. I like this. I'm a fan of Oktoberfest.
It's pretty good.
Of course, Austin, we have Live Oak's Oktoberfest is the Austin Oktoberfest.
But yes, it's good.
But
none of it's bad beer, but Live Oak is just. We've talked about Live Oak.
Yeah, Live Oak is good.
Live Oak is like.
I think it might be if not it's one of the oldest craft breweries in Austin.
Yeah, and I don't think they get too adventurous. I think Live Oak is like Fight Club for people who are becoming, cinephiles or like to think that they are.
It's the gateway drug that you look back on and go, that's probably not as good as I remember.
Yeah.
And it's not. But it's still great, and I love showing it to people.
Sure.
It's just...
and it's a nice place to hang out, too.
The Fight Club?
No, I thought you meant Live Oak.
No, I was now talking about Fight Club.
I like introducing Live Oak beers to people.
No, I like introducing Fight Club to people.
Sure.
Tyler's like, yeah, it's a great place to hang out. Get the crap kicked out of you. It's great.
Yeah, Katie and I watched it late last year. We went to a quote-along.
For Fight Club?
Yeah.
You are not a beautiful and unique snowflake.
It was very odd. But that's the first time she had seen it. And same reaction, like, wow, that's so deep. There's so much going on. And it's good. It's a great movie. I enjoy it quite a bit.
I put it on the lower spectrum of Fincher movies, though, for myself.
Sure, yeah.
Like, it's just hard to top Seven, Gone Girl, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, his
Is that your order?
Stuff. No, it's just... I bet it... I'd put Dragon Tattoo above Gone Girl, I think. But,
probably.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close to the order. I love his movies, though. He's good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's talk about games.
Yeah, we are here to talk about games.
And why don't you tell me about one of your favorite games?
I haven't played it in a long time. So we're talking about Lone Survivor here. I've played Lone Survivor. I think this is my
limited
fourth
run Vita copy.
That's right. Still pretty cheap if you do enjoy the game or play it after this discussion and decide you like it. These are still very cheap right now. But I loved this game. I wouldn't put it as high on my list anymore. It's been maybe 5 years or so since I've played it. But I played it within like the first year I played it. I think I played it 3 or 4 times. So this is either my 4th or 5th playthrough.
Sure.
And there's some new content in there, I believe, with the director's cut, which I played. Back in the day, I didn't play that. That was I got it on launch or soon after, with the Humble Indie Bundle 5. Those were the days.
Yep.
There's never been a better package of video games. Never been a better deal. Because, you can pay what you want for that stuff. You had, like, Hotline Miami, Amnesia, Psychonauts, Braid, Super Meat Boy, this, Super
My
Brothers.
Goodness.
Yeah, it was really, like, all the super heavy hitters. A Bastion was in there. Like, really, like, that list, just look up the Humble Indie Bundle 5, and all of those games, with the exception of maybe Psychonauts, I know why it's included, but it wasn't really relevant at the same time all of these games were relevant.
Sure.
There's like a span of 4 years that Xbox Live Arcade was really opening up when, Bastion came out and Super Meat Boy. And so from like 2008 to 2012, those indie hits made possible the sort of games that we're getting today. Your Dead Cells or Blasphemous, things like that.
I like you just named 2 that I just played recently.
Yes, I know.
I love both of those games.
But
Dead
the
Cells.
things included in Humble Indie Bundle 5 made that seem possible,
Sure.
I think. Anyway, enough about Humble Indie Bundle 5. Lone Survivor. I really enjoy the sort of surreal atmosphere that it invokes. It's
I'm gonna say it again, man. Lynchian.
Yes, and this is before I discovered Twin Peaks. I played this before I discovered Twin Peaks, and I was loving every second of it.
Again, we brought it up, on a previous episode, but just, for anyone who hasn't seen it, David Lynch is in so many of Tyler's favorite games.
Yeah, really just my favorite thing.
It's just the simple, mundane, and ordinary combined with the supernatural, surreal and bizarre. And he does it great. He's a master at it.
He is.
I hold Mulholland Drive as one of the greatest cinematic experiences, period.
Really? Wow.
Absolutely. It's not for everybody, but everybody should see it.
It's incredible.
I agree.
I loved every second of that. I've only seen it once, back when...
Have you seen Inland Empire?
No.
Nope, not gonna tell you anything.
Okay,
sure. Let's let you experience that on your own.
For sure.
I don't really like the movie very much, honestly,
but I might.
No, you just need to watch it.
Okay, sure. When MoviePass was a thing, there was a time like in the middle of MoviePasses, or maybe it was from the beginning until they really had that tumultuous time at the end. Rest their souls. Where I was seeing a movie like 3 times a week for $5 a month. It was incredible, and I would frequent the Austin Film Society, and
they're awesome.
I got to have a couple cocktails and watch Mulholland Drive, and it was an incredible experience. We're here to talk about games, okay?
Sorry,
quit making me go down these holes.
But I mean, that's what this game invokes in a lot of ways, is that Lynchian atmosphere, that the mundane, because I mean, you look at the apartment complex and it is this, bland, extremely generic apartment complex that you start out in. Your bed, your room, it's all extremely drab.
Very specifically, not your bed and not your room.
But you, the player's bed, and you, the player's room. Frustratingly not the character's room. He will mention it over and over.
Yeah, he's not going to put on other people's shoes. He's not going to look in their drawers. He has like this respect for
or just germophobia.
Maybe interesting.
That's what I was picking up.
So let's run down what this game is. It is a side-scrolling horror game. It's not.
Say that one more time.
It's a side-scrolling horror game.
Yeah.
Which you don't really think about, and these 2 games were playing together for a specific reason. Top down being Darkwood, and then a side scroller here with and it like a very old Super Nintendo pixelated art horror game, honest to goodness horror.
Because we played a first person and a third person last time, right? So which is typical standard horror.
And a puzzle and an action. We're really trying to get as much of the horror genre as we can.
And this is as typically in terms of the gameplay, at least, this is about as far as it gets. It doesn't really stray too much further than this. There are some, but in terms of really stretching the genre, not many people do 2D. Not many people do isometric. Like, it's just not
this
done.
one's... so top-down and isometric are a little different.
No, I said nobody does 2D, and nobody really does isometric, which is, Darkwood.
No, I'm saying like Darkwood is straight up top down. Isometric is more like the CRPGs, like where the camera is angled a little bit instead of a strictly bird's eye.
Okay, sure, whatever. It functions the same way though as an isometric game, right? So like you have, we'll talk about Darkwood later. But
we will talk about.
But
Darkwood.
Nobody goes there.
You're right,
because it's
very few.
I don't know if it's because
studios
it's
go
less
there.
immersive. It's harder to engage the player into the horror. I mean, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure. So in Lone Survivor, we'll just sort of run down the the general conceit of the game. There's been some sort of zombie outbreak. It's not really discussed very much, and you're alone by yourself in this apartment complex. It's being overrun by whatever these infested people, these zombies are. And you've got very limited resources. You need to survive. You're sort of really on your last leg, and you want to get outside of the apartment complex. You want to see if there's any life out there. So at the end of your days, the character is assuming it might soon be the end of his days. So it's really like one Hail Mary pass to get out of this apartment and see if there's any other life out there.
Taking big risks, just trying to get out.
Really big risks. And it plays with light and dark a lot, very common themes in horror games. And
Sure.
I mean, like, actual light.
It reminded me mechanically a lot of Amnesia in that when you're in the dark, monsters have trouble seeing you, but then you have trouble seeing the monsters. When you're in the light, you can see the monsters, but the monsters can see you. You know what I mean? So it's a very simple decision. Extremely simple decision, but made engaging and interesting just because of the nature of the decision.
Yeah. So I want to hear about your experience here. I was very fond of this game. I enjoy it quite a bit, but I played it on the expert mode. I didn't in my previous playthroughs, but I played it here, and your map is taken away from you. And there's a particular part in this game that is
I would probably cry.
Wildly difficult. I couldn't finish it, unfortunately. And I wasn't going to start over. I wanted to put a lot of time in Darkwood, and since I've already finished it in the past, I didn't really find it necessary. But I'd still like to. I'd like to revisit it again.
Sure.
I'm very fond of this game. I don't think you're as hot on it as
I don't like this game.
Heard that.
But that's not to say the game's not good. Allow me to definitely make that distinction. This game is not for me. I remember one moment where I was scared. So in terms of a horror game, it didn't draw me in that way so much. A lot of it is surreal.
Mm-hmm.
Very much the horror is not so much in the moment-to-moment gameplay as it is in the overall experience of playing the game.
Yeah.
And so that might be why it wasn't there for me so much. But I'll also say that I love the atmosphere. I think he builds a setting that is so interesting and it's so unique without being over the top. Like, look at me, I have this extremely cool gimmick that makes my sorry, I dropped my ring. That makes my setting unique. You know what I mean? It's just an apartment complex with typical
And
zombie
he
fleshy
being,
tropes.
Jasper Byron.
Yeah. The developer.
Yeah.
Everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And the music, of course, because he
doesn't really make games anymore. He's making music. Good music. He had an album come out last year that I definitely recommend, but I won't get sidetracked on his music.
But no, it's great music, and every time a track starts playing, I'm immediately invested in it, and I feel there. It's a fantastic score in every sense. But
I like to mention music in games. We very recently played Shadowrun Returns, and the music that is in your room, like the track that plays when you're in your room, seems so similar to the track that plays when you're in the...
It's funny I didn't draw that connection.
But just talking about it, you hear it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
like
I'll go back and listen to them both, but they seem so similar. The track that plays when you're like in the
safe area.
The safe area in Shadowrun. They seem like almost the same track. This one is maybe just a little more stripped down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway.
I will say, though, the thing that drew me out had nothing to do with all that stuff. I think it was extremely well put together in all the aspects. Just the gameplay. I found it frustrating and not in a good way where it's like, oh, it's difficult, let me overcome this challenge. It's like, I know exactly what I have to do. I just have to pull it off consistently. And you're just making the same run, like especially in the basement, like 5 or 6 times. You're making the same run, and it's just like you just want it to be done. You're not invested anymore. And it happened a couple times. There's a particularly one instance where you're on the first floor and you walk into a room and there's this massive flesh creature. It looks like if you were to take the Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth and smush it together with the Super Mother Brain from the end of Super Metroid and just mush them together. It's basically exactly that. Like, look it up. I'm right. But the and I had my light on and it just charges at me and I go and I left. That was the moment I'm talking about where I was like, really, it got me. And I go back in, light off, I figure out what to do. And you go down to the basement, you basically organize it so that creature ends up in the basement, but then it chases you. There's a chase sequence, which is the stupidest thing of all time. Like, I get what they were going for. You're essentially having to run blindly through all the hallways you just went through and trying to escape. But, you know, sometimes you have to enter a door and sometimes you have to run to the end of the hallway. And if you miss, you get hit, and if you get hit twice, you're dead. I found it very frustrating because it became trial and error. If I misjudged and ran past the doorway that I was supposed to go through, I died, you know, and then I know that for next time, restart, go back through, do it again, get a little further, die again. And it's like, okay, now I'm not engaged in this chase. Like, the chase was going for, oh, look, now you have to remember these hallways you just, you know, stumbled through. But it's too fast paced to really challenge the player to do that. You're really just running blindly, have your light on, and just like hope that you see where you're supposed to go. Yeah. So
I won't.
So again, while there is that stuff, it doesn't hold the game back, I don't think, from being absolutely worth playing and getting into and giving a try. It's not for me, but there's so much there, specifically with the little humorous moments that are in there, the way that you interact with items. And, you know, even just finding something like a bag of squid chips and having him eat it just to see what the character does when he eats it. He goes, this is kind of gross. You know, like he likes certain foods more than other foods. And you can see him and, you know, he's about to eat an orange. He goes, this is risky. And he just eats it. You know, it's I liked being with him.
Okay.
The character.
Yeah, very interesting.
You know, so that's something that I think is for some people, that's it. That's what they're going for in games. And just spending the time with him is worth the frustrating moments of actually getting through the moment to moment, area to area gameplay.
Now, you mentioned the frustrating moments, but have mentioned two of them. The game is like 2.5 hours.
That's true. It's
so
very short.
It does seem, you know, when you put just 2 complaints in the context of the whole game, it's a pretty short game. So those 2 big moments they take up a, you know, large chunk of your opinion about the game.
Yeah. And you know, the more you experiment with your inventory and what's there, the better you'll do. You know, I'm gonna take this pill, see what happens. Like, you know, it's just. And if you're not doing that, I think you're gonna have a more frustrating time as well. It took me a while to get to the point where I started experimenting and trying stuff. And so yeah, that's kind of my general take on the game. But what playing it again still gets you?
Many of the same things that you mentioned. I really enjoy being in that space. No.
Okay, cool.
I don't find it as frustrating as you did.
Sure.
And maybe I did. It's been a long time since I played it previously, and unfortunately I didn't get to that part on this playthrough, but I don't remember having such a hard time.
Okay.
And I know it's difficult. You know, that map is hard to wrap your brain around.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty messy map.
I think you said it best. It's a 3D space, but in a 2D gameplay interaction setting. Yeah. You know, and you're just having to learn how to navigate it. It's very odd.
Yeah, I like it's pretty odd. It is odd, and I understand it's difficult to wrap your head around. I just don't remember having a very hard time with it, and so I was really focused on the character and the surreal moments.
And when you know where to go, the game just flies.
Yeah, and I'm surprised how much of it I retained. I got through, you know, down to the basement, which is that really difficult part you're mentioning.
Yeah,
I got there in less than 45 minutes on hard. I don't know what hard does other than take your map away. I think there's a couple other things, but that's the big thing. Taking your map away is nuts. Play this game on easy or whatever the default
setting.
Yeah, yeah. It asks you.
The I'm scared setting, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah.
This is my first time and I'm scared.
Yeah. I want to mention something. I want to take a sidetrack in just a moment. But the character, I really enjoyed being with the character and in that space and really figuring out what is wrong with him. Because his sanity is slipping. And it's very apparent. He knows it. You know it. And you're taking pills to go to sleep, and whenever you go to sleep, depending on the pills you take, some sort of event happens, and you've got these different like story paths you're going down in your dream space when you take these, depending on the pills you take.
Sure.
And I explored with that, so I got at least 3 endings when I played before, and just couldn't do it this time around. But anyway, the things that you mentioned that are positive are what really get me about
Sure.
that. And maybe I would have different opinions if those more difficult moments had really hindered me.
Like, this is a game, just to kind of sum up one more time what I feel about this game. This is not a game that I'm going to put on my list of favorite games, but it is a game that I am probably going to recommend to certain people. People like Oliver, our friend Oliver, absolutely, I'd tell him to play this game.
You know, I think he has.
Yeah,
I think I've recommended it.
I'm sure that he would love a game like this. So, you know, there are people where I would go, absolutely, this is right up your alley. You should be playing this game, and I get that. You know,
I also think handheld is the way.
I really wanted to play it handheld.
Is the way to play
if you
it.
play it on PC, I couldn't change you have to actually go into the files and change the resolution settings and stuff, and so I had to look up a quick guide on how to do that.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was a little frustrating, but I mean, that doesn't factor into my experience of the game. It's just, you should probably play it handheld if you can.
Last night I sat out on our sofa that's on the porch, and just cuddle up in a blanket and had it like right here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was nice. I liked it. I couldn't.
Yeah, my wife and I have been playing through Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and I'll just make some tea, and we'll snuggle up on the couch, and we'll hand the controller back and forth. And
I'm so excited to jump back into that once I get my Switch fixed.
I got to the green star areas in Galaxy. Whew,
yeah,
those are tough.
I'm a little more than, or right about halfway through Galaxy. That's the one I'm playing.
I've unlocked the final area, the final level, but I haven't gone there yet.
Yeah, just 100%ing everything.
Everything, 121 stars. Let's do this.
So I think I'm in the 4th area, and I have every star I can currently get. But I wanted to mention something about this and the other game we're going to talk about, Darkwood. They do something similar to Amnesia that, what is it called? Dead Space does not do. And it prepares you for what this game labels as the ritual. And I've heard that term before, I just forgot it. And Amnesia, this game, and Darkwood take a moment to
on that first
prepare you,
screen,
to prepare you for the experience you're about to have. And it says, before we continue, like in this game, before we continue, let's go through the ritual. And it tells you to put on headphones, get in a dark room, maybe even have like a warm drink or something. And I do that. I do that already. It is a ritual. But these smaller indie games seem to really drive that home, and so far have all taken time to sort of acclimate the player to the experience that the game is trying to offer. Whereas something like Dead Space did not. And maybe you don't have to do that, but the 2 or 3 times that I have played Dead Space, I've gone through the ritual. I'm curious to see how many other games we play.
I love
do that.
Half the joy of reading a book is where you're reading the book.
Yeah,
is how you're reading the book. It's incredible how I can note to you the most significant and impactful moments in books in my life. They don't have to have changed my life or anything, but just really powerful moments in books, and I can tell you the exact place that I was,
really,
the exact way that I felt when I was reading those books. Most memorable for me recently is when I finally read Watership Down. I was at Easy Tiger with my wife. It's a little bakery, coffee shop, brewery fantasticness here in Austin, and I sit down and I'm reading the end of the book, and the end of the book just hits me hard, and a manly tear rolls down my face, and I turn to look out the window, and I close the book. My wife's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, Amanda, this is right." It's just like, I remember those things. I think it is important, the entering into this space where you are ready to consume this thing. And what sucks is, the reason I'd say a lot of people may not do it, even myself sometimes, is because you're not always rewarded for it. Sometimes that thing doesn't deliver in the right way. I remember the first time I tried to read Moby Dick, I just wasn't giving it the time that it needed. That's a book where I think you're supposed to read one tiny chapter every night. One little chapter. Oh, it's over 100 chapters. They're just really really tiny most of the time. And I think if you try to breeze through it, you're just not giving it the time it needs. But when I, give that time to other books, sometimes I'm not rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a risk sometimes. But I'm glad that these games take a moment to reorient the player and go, hey, this is what kind of game this is. Let me help you figure out how to enjoy yourself. Let me help you figure out what the right place to be in to play this game is.
Now, something we haven't mentioned yet is our sort of definition for horror. I think we're going to revisit that for every game we play. And last week, I came up with a couple bullet points of what really define a horror experience for me. Excuse me, this beer's getting to me.
Yeah, it's got a little syrup on the end, honestly.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I'm just,
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, a couple of those points here. Atmosphere, it needs to have a really strong atmosphere. Whatever atmosphere it's going for, it just needs to evoke that successfully. And I think this game definitely does that. We've got scarcity of resources, I think, very often, in terms of mechanics that help drive
take that
home.
a step further, honestly. What I noted here was, horror is already, in a sense, a limiting experience.
Okay.
Right? It's already a process of, all games are limiting. You have rules. They're limiting you from doing whatever you want to do, right? But horror limits you in very unique ways. Scarcity of resources, that kind of stuff. And to think about the limitations of a 2D space. If I'm in a 3D environment and there's a monster behind me and a monster in front of me, I'm just going to run to the left. If I'm in this 2D space and there's a monster behind me and a monster in front of me, I'm dead. It's a very different sense of limitation. And
you mentioned, we mentioned earlier the 3D space. I guess we didn't describe that very well. So let's use that example. If you've got a monster to your left and right, what do you do if you don't have a gun or something? Or even if you do, you're firing at one, but the other one's coming from behind. Because this is a 3D space, you have doors that you can go through on the background, on the wall, but also...
Or on the foreground, yeah.
Or on the foreground, exactly. You can go into rooms that are, not in your view, but you can see the door faintly on the foreground. Or
you can hide in walls and stuff, like crawl behind the wall a little bit. It's 2.5D. No, but it's the...
Yeah, not quite. It doesn't have a Z-axis that you can walk on.
Sure, yeah.
But, that's why not having a map is such a big deal, because if, I go into a room that's on the foreground, the camera doesn't move, but you have to think about the camera flipping completely to now show you the 2D space of this room, which also has doors on the foreground and the background and the sides. So when you go through one and out of another, it's so difficult to acclimate yourself to the direction you're actually moving in.
But yeah, to think about how, putting you in a 2D space is another limiter, another way to make you think about horror. And it's interesting.
Yeah. I'm happy you enjoyed it to the extent that you did. Totally valid complaints.
Sure.
I totally get it. But I'm happy you played it. I got to replay what I did. What'd you think about the end there in the city? Was that more difficult than the basement?
No, not at all.
Basement's
definitely the hardest part.
Spot. Yeah.
Even the final boss, quote unquote, is not as difficult as the basement. So yeah. But honestly, I also felt the ending. There are multiple endings, but I don't know. I felt more emotionally and I guess engaged and more immersed in the game at other points. It's the smaller points that really drew me in. It wasn't those bigger moments. So
like when it really shows that his sanity is slipping and you don't know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know what's real. Once you see it, everything's dead.
Yeah.
But there's a few points where you start to question that, and those moments really shine.
And you see him go back and forth, and he's kind of apathetic about it at this point. It's good. Like I said, those are the moments that drive that game for me.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that when I would think about this game in the future will be the parts that I remember.
Mm-hmm. So it's a really focused experience. As I mentioned, 2.5 hours if you know what you're doing. So at most,
it took me like 4.
Yeah, so at most 4 hours, and it's pretty cheap. I think it's $10. It might be $15, but it's a pretty cheap game. I recommend it wholeheartedly. His complaints are completely true. wrapping your head around the map is difficult, but everything that it evokes, I think, is done so
I do like the map,
successfully.
though. Like, that is, like, me wrapping my head around the map is not a complaint. Let me just say that real quick.
Sure.
That I love the map. I think it's really cool and how he does it. And having to come to terms with that feeling of, even though you have a map, not always knowing where you're going, you know? It's like, I'll go down the wrong door sometimes and miss my, misstep. And I like that.
Map is going to be a big talking point. Not a big talking point, but I definitely want to mention the map.
There's going to be a lot of big talking points.
In Darkwood, which I think I'm ready to move on to if you don't have anything else to say about Lone Survivor.
Let's definitely move on. Again, thank you for sharing that game with me.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I got to play it. I definitely learned a lot playing it. So let's talk about Darkwood, and specifically,
let's do it.
Let's mention to everybody listening that we are not done with this game yet.
Yeah, we didn't give ourselves enough time. We're playing 2 to 3 games a week.
We usually have 2 weeks.
Yeah. We didn't know what we were signing up for. This game is dense. It is difficult.
Yeah.
But consistently engaging all the way through.
So we're in
this...
Or,
I mean, I don't know. I haven't reached the end yet.
Yeah. We're both well into the second area of the game. There are 4 from what I've seen online. I honestly haven't gotten that far, so I'm not sure. I'm trying to keep myself pretty in the dark. But we will be doing a follow-up. We will finish this game, and we will finish this discussion.
Sometime next week, we'll finish. This is going to be more of our first impressions. And then I think we're going to do a little deeper dive. It's a little over a year old now, I think. So it'd be safe to do a deeper dive into the end content. But I think we can speak pretty freely about what we...
Yeah, so there will be no spoilers if anybody's worried about that. We're not there yet.
There would be some slight spoilers about what you experience, 3 hours into the game. But end game stuff, we can't talk about it because we haven't seen it yet. But when we do... It's going to be next week, and we are gonna dive into it fully. And
I'd like to open just by saying, of all the games we've played for this so far, this is my favorite.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. It's new to me. It's
new and it's so engaging. Yeah. I want to constantly go back in, but I also constantly feel scared. And to think about it in a top-down game where you typically have a full field of vision, when you think about that genre and that style, you're like, scary?
Yeah, it is a twin-stick game if you're playing with a controller. It's the kind of movement you would see in an arcade twin-stick shooter. One is to move in any direction, one is to look in any direction.
And you have a field of vision. And that's all you can see. If there is something behind you that is not in your field of vision, or to your peripheral that is not in your field of vision, you will not see it. But importantly,
you can hear it.
You will hear it.
Oh, you can hear it.
And what's great is sometimes you'll turn your head and there is nothing there.
Because it's you, likely. Yeah. Like if you hear a branch crack in the woods, that's probably you, but you don't know.
And that is the foundation from which all the other horror in this game is built off of. Is that
those two things: the field of view and its accompaniment with the sound.
Yes, those combined are the foundation from which all the horror in this game is built from.
And it's so successful too. It's so stressful, but in a good way. It evokes a level of fear that is so genuine.
Sure, we'll talk about the prologue in a second, but I want to skip ahead. And the normal cycle, the normal loop of this game is at nighttime, you can't go outside. Now, granted, I've not tried to go outside, but if you do, it is heavily implied that you will die. Mm-hmm. And even when you're barricaded in your house, which is safe because of your oven, which basically it sends out this vapor that keeps you safe somehow. It's very abstract. And what's really interesting is to see the character that you're playing as sit in this house at night and just wait for something to happen, because you're sitting there waiting, but the character, you can't see their face, you can't see their emotions, you can't really hear them. They're not doing anything besides panting, maybe if you're sprinting. So you have no idea what this person's feeling or thinking. So all you're done is you're just sitting there, and those first couple nights, maybe something might not even happen.
Yeah.
And so you're like, what? It's not dangerous. This is fine, But then you might turn around and you'll see, I don't know if this happened to you. I turned around and saw this guy in this massive crow garb, with this massive
I did
beak.
as well. In my house, though.
In my house, yeah. And during the nighttime, and then I'm like, oh no, he's gonna kill me. And he doesn't. He just disappears and leaves a little rock.
Were your lights on at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. I accidentally, I stepped away, forgetting to pause the game, and nighttime happened, and so I hadn't turned on the generator yet. This is a survival game. You have to craft everything. You have to find gasoline for your generator. Then you have to turn it on
at night.
Then go turn your lights on if you haven't manually turned them off. There's a lot of management there. It's all engaging management. So far it hasn't become tedious.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of survival games, I don't think that's going to turn you off this game.
No, because I'm not really.
Yeah, I don't usually go and buy into those games all the time, but I'm really enjoying the loop here. I'm really enjoying finding things, and it's because I think that it's not so much about craft this, do that, craft this, it just here's this abstract list of crafting things. It's much more, okay, go out, explore, find as much as you can, get back, don't die. It's very urgent.
Yeah. That's the bird creature or whatever it was, someone in a mask or something. It showed up on that night where I didn't have anything on. So I could barely see inside my house because I just stepped away from the computer and forgot to pause. And there were shadows
the worst
swirling
game you could do
my,
that
yeah,
with.
right? Shadows swirling my house. So things were just moving around. So because you know the space, you can see in your top-down view other rooms of the house that are lit. You can't see what's in there, but you can faintly see that a lamp is lit. There's a piece of furniture here, but you can't see if people or creatures are walking through it. So sometimes you'll just see furniture move around because the enemies, the AI will move things. You can move any piece of furniture and
you can make barricades and stuff.
Yeah, like in the house I'm in now, I only have 2 rooms open to me because I barricaded all the other doors and in rooms, and then put actually barricaded them with wood, and then put furniture in front of all of them. So I've got furniture on one side of the door, and then a bathtub on the other, and so the only way in is the front door that I'm now guarding.
But even the urgency of going to an area, finding a new house with an oven and a generator, and just the sun's going down. Okay, I need to find where the generator is. I need to find where this is. I need to make a barricade. Just the urgency of all that. And oh crap, all my stuff is still back in my old place. What am I going to do?
So now I can't barricade anything. I left all my wood back at my other location. Do you do that? Do you stay in other buildings, or do you make it to your house every night?
I explicitly always make it back to my house. And you know what's funny is, have you gone outside at night?
Yeah, once. And turns out there's a note of it early in the game, but I didn't make that connection. The red mushrooms grow more plentiful at night, so you can go out there and find them.
It's an indication of the horror of this game that I have not even tried, that I have no desire to even try. Maybe as I progress and get a little bit more comfortable, but the problem is, even getting a gun doesn't make you feel comfortable. Nothing makes you feel like you're in charge.
Everything is broken. Nothing lasts. Everything has, item degradation. Either it's rotting food, or your weapons are breaking. Your tools have fewer uses. And I want to say, I have not gone out for a full night to see if I can survive. There was something at my front door that said, "Come to me," and I was sure, I'll open it. And the sun was just coming up, so I was barely out there. But in front of my door, there was a mushroom or 2 that I could harvest, and you can use those mushrooms to increase your various skills. Yeah, you extract some sort of
from meats and certain biological. I think one YouTuber called this genre of horror bioarboreal or something, because it's instead of biopunk or all the different kinds of horror, it's just trees. It's tree horror.
Tree horror, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's but it's interesting to see, because when you pick an upgrade, you typically also have to pick
there are
limiter.
Yeah, there are tiers to the upgrade. It looks like you can pick 2 upgrades for every tier you're in, but and there's skills. You can the first one I
360 degree vision for 1 minute.
That's the latest one I had. The first one I got was you can heal once a day next to a light source.
That's immediately the one I chose too.
Yeah.
So good.
So
an electric light source.
In each, specifically.
Otherwise, you're just photosynthesis.
So in every tier you're in, you can have the first time you pick a skill there, you pick a useful skill and something that is negative. And then the next time you upgrade, you can pick another skill freely. And then the third time you enter into the next tier. And it seems like it's going to follow that loop.
Seems so. But we're going to find out.
It gets so expensive so quickly.
There's a lot.
I don't really understand how or why it ramps like that, but it goes from like 80 to 460 to 800 something to 240 I'm at now. Or 2,400.
Yeah, I really like it. I like that it makes you pick a limiter as well.
Yeah,
definitely. I think it's good. It plays into the horror of the game. But even like when you think about, you can see 360 degrees. You can heal next to like, what are you turning into?
Yeah.
Injecting this stuff into yourself, like, and it's little moments like that too. The characters, the NPCs are incredibly really interesting. You have one YouTuber I was watching called him Jesus, this trader who shows up every morning at your house that you can trade with. And you don't trade for money. You don't trade for any sort of currency. You're trading for reputation.
Yeah. And this is a great mechanic.
Yeah, it's basically, every time you survive the night, you gain 100 or 150 reputation with the trader that shows up at your house because he's on your side. And when he sees you survive, he's like, let me help you out. I want to give you some stuff. When you trade more and more with other NPCs or give them stuff that they want, you'll gain reputation with them, and they'll let you just take stuff from their inventory of a certain value.
You can trade for equal value, but if my reputation with the trader is 300, I can just take things. So if
it's kind of like, you did me a solid, let me do you a solid. Come on.
So sometimes I'll just go find the people and give them stuff because it's one, a way to clear your inventory, but also you get value for that in that you're building that relationship with that character. And we mentioned, staying in other houses, the rundown houses, finding the generators and whatnot. I think there's now a place that you can safely do that there's other places you can do it in the first area, but in the second area, there's the place with that young boy who's like kind of crazy. Have you met him?
Is he the one outside that chicken lady's house?
I haven't been to a chicken lady's house. He's got like
I'm excited for you.
He's got like a wire on his head and he's building a spaceship.
Oh, you're talking about okay. I am. So I know who you're talking about. I'm going there next. He's the last spot on my map, basically.
Oh, really? That's
like he's the furthest thing away from me. Like
what?
Yeah, he's extremely far away from me.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the maps are random.
That's right. Okay, he's directly below my house.
Nice. Okay.
I say directly. He's maybe like a 2-minute walk.
So we should mention that there are always 3 areas. There's the starting area, another area, and then the old woods, and they're always connected to each other. Each one, has a path to the 2 others, but it's randomized. It's the same locations, but it's randomized, and a lot of times that's not done well. But when you think about it in terms of horror, what happens at night isn't always going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to your forest, you're not always going to know where you're going or what you're supposed to do. Even if you've played the game before, you're still going to have to do that exploration part of the loop where you're trying to find things to help progress to get to the point where you can survive long enough to make it to the next spot. Because the only thing stopping you from moving forward is your ability to make it there.
Yes.
That's it.
Now, we're talking about travel a little bit, so I want to bring up the map. You can't see your location on the map. There's a skill you can get later that once a day you can like drop blood on the ground and show where you are on the map. But generally, it's just the waypoints. So if I find this old barn that's burnt down, that'll be marked on my map automatically. So I just need to know the relative distance I am from whatever landmark I was at previously with the landmark I am currently at.
Yep.
But there's one thing they do that I think is so smart. And on the ground, someone has like driven a large tractor from one point, like the house you end up in the beginning of the game to the bottom of the second area. And as you walk along these tire tracks, that's marked on your map. So that can help you get from point to point. It's like a road you can follow.
Sure, it's like things that if I was actually exploring an area that I would know where I am if I saw it. Mm-hmm. If I'm walking along the tire track path, I know where it goes. I've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only reason you can look at your map and know where you are is if you're next to a landmark and it's highlighted red, because it's not special. It's not like you, the player, don't know that already. You're already there. You know what that place is. The only thing that it's telling you is, hey, this little symbol that the guy made is this spot that we're talking about, in case you couldn't pick that up. It's great. It's really good. And, you know, the goal is simple. There's a prologue. You play as this doctor who you assume is trying to, you know, fix the plague that's going on at the time. And as the woods enclose on these people and weird things start to happen, and so you walk outside, your dog's dying, you kill your dog, put your dog down.
Yeah, the dog is dying, and he's like, well, I should really put him out of his misery. And so I did.
Oh, I did. I could not leave the dog like that.
Yeah.
I just could not. And so I walked along. You find the character you play as for the rest of the game. You take that character back to your house and beat the ever-loving daylights out of him.
Yeah, it really takes a sharp turn.
But he takes a key from your player character, and then you become the player character and beat him up, but you can't find the key. And you end up in this house. Somebody takes you to the house that you start the game in, and your goal is to find the key. You know where the key goes. You've seen the door. It's this underground weird door with a little light that shines through it, but that's all you know, and you have to go find the key. And you know, you meet the NPC Wolf character, Wolfman, and he tells you, I'll help you, but prove your worth, meet me here. And you just kind of start trying to survive. You know, it's not about, okay, go to here, go to here, go to here. It's like, all right, let me like explore, find stuff, make some good trades, get to a point where I can actually make it there. Surviving the night, though, it's kind of, it reminds me of Northgard in a weird way, where sure, I'm fighting my other enemies, I'm trying to get to victory conditions, but I'm also fighting the winter. Like, sure, I'm trying to get to my next goal in Darkwood, but really I have to consider, I can't just use these supplies to get there. I have to use them to survive the night, too, you know? My favorite strategy is laying down bear traps and just sitting there with some Molotov cocktails waiting for these guys to, you know.
Really?
Oh, man, because the second they get lit on fire, it's game over. Like, they can't handle it.
I don't use the Molotov cocktails.
You should use the Molotov cocktails.
I just sold all but, I think, 2 of my bottles. Well, I can't refill them with alcohol.
But you can fill them with gasoline and make Molotovs.
What?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
They're really good. I
could probably buy them back. They're cheap.
It has saved me.
I had like 15 empty bottles. I just sold them all.
That's a shame. Yeah, I use them all the time. You know, but there's light sources too you have to consider. Some areas are very dark. You can have a lantern, which when it's equipped will slowly drain, and you just you don't have to have it out. It just has to be on your belt.
I haven't built it yet.
Yeah, it just has to be on your belt, and basically it's like, you know, add one of your active item slots, and you don't have to equip it. It just sits there and shines, but it's a smaller radius, and it's just always going out when you have it equipped there. The torch you have to have in your hand. You have to have it actively equipped, not just on your active slots, right? And you can wave it around if you need to.
Yeah, you can attack with it.
It's not good. It's like a last resort, but you know, it's there. Yeah, there's a lot to think about in this game, and it doesn't tell you this stuff. You are figuring this out as you go. Does this work?
It doesn't even tell you what the buttons do.
Yeah, it just tells you, get the key.
Yeah.
Get the key. And you're like, oh no, I'm gonna die.
So I mentioned that this game was very dense in the beginning. This game is not for the faint of heart, but also requires a particular level of, I think, video game literacy. You know, if you didn't grow up with a controller in your hand and are not being told explicitly what button to press, there's no way you're going to play this game. I mean, yes, of course, anyone can learn it, but it's very difficult. There is zero tutorial. There's the prologue, which might sort of act as a tutorial, but it does not tell you to press. It
just kind of sets the scene more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because, like, then you wake up, you find this, like, dude on the floor, arms splayed out, who has, like, radio knobs instead of eyes. Just extremely disturbing.
Yeah. It's good. It does a lot of things in very interesting ways. I've not played a game like this before.
Never. I'm
so excited to continue. So I'm glad we're going to revisit it instead of moving right on.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got a lot to say about it, man.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I want to make sure that we bring up is the way it communicates horror is through that sound and sight thing all the time. And specifically when you're at home at night, because the loop is, like I said, during the day, go out, explore, get as much as you can to both prep for the night and prep for getting to your next goal. And sometimes you're just prepping for, I wonder what will happen if I do this. There's a part you haven't gotten to yet, so I won't mention it yet, but there's a couple different things I can try out. And I'm like, let me just get the equipment I need to try this thing to see what happens when I do this. Sometimes that's just your goal. But
yeah, a lot of personal goals, because you already know it tells you go fight Ganon. And then you do what you want.
Absolutely. And I think it communicates that very well. It communicates things that you want to try, again, if you're literate in video games, very well. I know the things that I should be trying. I know that if I were to light this thing on fire, it will probably go away. Things like that, where I'm very aware, and so I just have to prep for getting those things and prepare my plan for my personal goal. But then the sun sets, and you need to go home. And you go home, you flip your generator on, you reset up your barricades, maybe nail up some new stuff.
God forbid you forget to fill your generator.
Oh,
I've not run out of gas yet, but I also find it odd that the enemies don't go for the generator. Like, they could turn it off.
I bet yet is the key.
You're probably right.
Yeah, I bet.
Because, like, in the first area, when you meet the guys during the daytime, they'll run away from you. But in the second area, they're hostile anytime you see them.
And they're like these weird... like picture of Blair Witch, stick figure, but as a person, like that's
sure, yeah,
like that's kind of what they are.
Yeah, they're really skinny, pale people that might have, adorned themselves with antlers and things like that. They're savages. They're labeled as savages when you kill them. Like you can loot the savage.
Yeah, it's terrifying though, man, when you are locked in your house at night, even with the lights on. Because you might not be facing the right way. You'll hear something and you'll run to go check it out, and there's nothing there while something else is crawling in where you just were. One time, a bunch of bugs came into my house, and I just left them alone. I'm like, I need to prepare for other things, but then they die and spread rot throughout my house.
Interesting.
And
so then you can't move unless you take the time to burn it away?
Yep. And so, I had to waste a Molotov to clear it all out. There's actually a room that still has rot in it because I just don't want to waste fire.
I have not seen the bugs do anything other than the...
I don't know if it's related. I mean, it seemed like it was.
Which house are you on?
Second.
The one that bridges the two... Oh, I guess there's no workbench in that one. So there's a house that separates the first and second area. You have to walk through that house.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a generator there. You could stay there if you wanted.
Sure, I did not.
So you're in the second house. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the bugs come in. Is there a nest near your house?
No.
Oh.
They just straight up, I saw one just crawl up from the floorboards. Like, it was terrifying.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it's like, see, that's what I'm talking about.
What night are you on?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Definitely a couple more than you for sure. I wasted a lot of time in the first area. Mm-hmm. A lot of time in the first area. Like, if I were to go back and replay, I bet you'd get out of the first area really fast.
Yeah, I wasted 3 days bringing all of my equipment from the first house to the second house, and then later learned that there's an item that will do that for you.
Yeah.
It's a nice little surprise.
Yeah, it's cool. And I don't know, man. There's just so much to talk about with this game that I really like.
Yeah, you mentioned the line of sight, and the sound design is incredible. It's so natural. None of it sounds artificial.
No, not at all.
Not
all the creaks, all the taps, all the pats. And
even just
have you ever seen like a guy come up to a window, look in, and then just turn off and run away? And you're like, where are you going?
Yeah,
like what are you doing? And the music, like this horrible. Like, as if it's about to build to this crescendo at the end of some crazy symphony, just builds as the sun starts to rise, as if something horrible is about to happen, but the sun's about to come up, and it's about to be okay. The first time it came up, everything turns red with the sunlight, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, everything is scared. Ending.
And then it just fades to white, and you're like, oh, wow, day 2?
Yeah, and you're like, but that didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like,
it does not.
Yeah.
So when you... This is... something that I think highlights the line of sight, and when you barricade a window, you put up a bunch of boards.
Sure.
And it implies that you board it vertically, because you can still see through them like this
little
much.
Cracks.
So you can walk back and forth, and like there's a few cones of vision that
really
will poke
small.
through, and they move. Yeah. So you can still see through the window. It's just very difficult to see through.
And there are like cracks in the walls sometimes in a house you can see
I didn't
through.
notice that. Yeah, I guess that would make sense that you can see through that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Again, the way they play with this very simple sound and field of vision, it just makes this game. One thing that impresses me immensely is if I see an enemy and I just don't feel like I have the resources to fight it, I'll just turn and run away sometimes. But there are like these little packs of white mushrooms, and if you step on them, you get poisoned. And, you know, you're not looking, you're not paying enough attention to that. You're turning back to, you know, you turn your head to look back to run away, and you turn forward and you're stepping on these poisonous mushrooms. And simple stuff like that makes you afraid to even run away, you know, that this claustrophobia of being in this space.
In a large open space.
Yeah, it's brilliant, man. That's something
I can't get enough of it, man.
You know,
it's
that's
so
just
good.
some guy making this game going, hey, dude, what if you're running away and you like something sucks? Like, you know, like, because that's what would happen if I was running away. You know, it's just simple things like that bring this world into focus in a way that can immerse you without having to be first person, without having to be third person right there looking at the creepy thing in front of you. You know, it's elegant is the right word for it. It is.
But it doesn't look like it on the surface, you know, and with the lack of tutorial, and it's pretty clunky. It
looks kind of funny, you know, when you're walking, because you can tell it's just like these two little leg animations kind of like going out and behind. And, you know, you're right. I think that's fair. On the surface, it may not look like that right away.
But under the hood, it's such a clean design, I think. And something it does very well is offer that sort of one more turn mentality that, I mean, that was coined from Civilization, just one more turn. And I think the game would be very difficult to finish, or even to just play for a little while, if you didn't have those very intentionally segmented days. Because if you were just alive continuously, like if there wasn't a day-night cycle like that, or if it didn't stop at sunrise, because the monsters go away, like once the sun rises, it fades to white and says day 3,
and time freezes.
Yeah,
like time actually freezes and lets you get everything in order before you start your next day.
And then the white will fade away, and it'll be a new morning. The guy has come to your house again. He can sell stuff to you. But I think without that structure, your personal goals would get lost, and it would be very difficult to just, you know,
gotta get that Animal Crossing routine into your terrifying horror game, you know, like, okay, now I'm awake.
And now that you mentioned it, I guess you're right, but I think the game would suffer if that wasn't there. I think it would be much more difficult, one, to just maintain your personal goals, and to, you know, find your bearings when you do start
to want to play.
Yeah, to want to play. You know, you can sit down for 30 minutes, maybe it's that long. I'm not quite sure.
Every session has been at least 3 hours because I just get so sucked in.
But
man.
You can have a satisfying session in 30 minutes because you know that's one day or whatever it is. It might be 45.
And the save cycle reflects that very much. Yeah. Like, don't stop till you're done with your day. Like, finish your day, finish your night, wake up, then stop the game. It really encourages that and pushes for that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If you die, it starts a new day?
If you die, I don't know. I don't think I've died outside of my house yet.
Okay, I've only died in my house once. And
really?
I'm pretty
I die
sure...
at night pretty frequently.
Okay.
I'm very stupid. I've stepped in my own bear trap like twice. Like,
really?
I am so dumb.
No, I've just been hitting the guys with my melee weapons.
I also didn't realize there was a dodge button until this morning.
Yeah, I know it's there. I keep reminding myself it's there, and I have not used it.
Yeah, my nights have been very difficult lately. But see, like, these conversations, oh man, you were okay on your nights, man. The nights were hard for me. And did you find the bride?
I don't think so.
You didn't find the bride.
I did find. I thought it was going to take another direction. So you can find like key items that they're not in your inventory, but they're things that you can trade. Like, oh look, I found a rubber duck. I found this picture of a road. What even is a road anymore? Because I don't think we mentioned this. The forest has fully enclosed wherever this place is, and people cannot get out.
And it's
or
very odd that someone got in at all. That the stranger that you're playing as got in the first place.
Oh, you got in.
Why,
I guess I didn't catch
why
that.
is he there?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
So you can't get out, or I guess typically in either, but like a picture of a road or something. I found a young girl's shirt. Just a white shirt with some flowers on it.
Yeah.
And so far, none of the, I guess, vendors that I've seen.
You can show the NPCs items, key items.
And, they might give you something for it in return.
Wolfman, you show him the picture of the road and he just laughs. That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Just like, it's so good.
Yeah. I definitely thought the Wolfman was going to be super creepy about that shirt. So far, no one is interested in it. Like, it doesn't even show up in the list of items that you can show a person yet.
Yeah, the Wolfman is very, pretend like you're talking to someone who thinks they know what's going on, but that this guy also accepts he has no idea what's going on, but he's just totally okay with it.
Yeah.
It's that kind of an attitude, that aloofness without actually believing you're aloof. It's very weird and very well balanced, and I like all of his dialogue. Mm-hmm. He might be my favorite character. No, the chicken lady. Good old chicken lady.
Yeah, that's where I'm going next. I think it's the chicken lady. I'm supposed to go to an old woman who...
Yes.
So after you meet him in the second area, he's like, wow, I can't believe you made it.
Oh, the chicken lady's not actually interesting in terms of her character or dialogue. It's just that there is a chicken lady. That's what really makes me happy.
Sure.
Like, oh, good, an old chicken lady. This is what I would imagine would be in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep exploring. There've been a couple games I haven't been able to finish. Lone Survivor, Dead Space. I've played them before, but let's see. Oh, I wasn't able to finish Shadowrun. Got up to that last mission. Just been really busy with the launch, but nothing has I haven't wanted to dive back into anything.
Very preternaturally able for some reason to finish games.
Yeah, I don't know how you can learn to cook. He's spending a lot of time learning to cook Japanese cuisine right now.
It's so good.
Watch TV, movies, read, finish, not just play, finish multiple games a week.
This is the first game out of the whole cast that I haven't finished yet.
And work a full-time job. A lot of
depends
downtime.
On the week.
Yeah,
depends on the week.
I just don't get it. I have a job with similar downtime. So I played like 2 hours of Darkwood yesterday. Well, I mean, I got a long lunch break, but anyway, I've got a job with some downtime as well, but I don't understand how you can do all
now
that.
That you and my brother and people have mentioned it, I don't know either, and I've decided to not think about it.
Don't.
To just
let it happen.
Just let it keep being this thing. And I go to bed at like 9:30.
Yeah.
I am an old man. I get up at 5:30, go on my run. I have my little Animal Crossing Darkwood routine.
It's 9:33, and I'm like, hey, dude, can you chat for a minute? I don't get a response until 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, after my routine, I'm sitting at my desk and I go, yes, Tyler, how can I help you today? I can't imagine. But yeah, very odd. Very odd person.
So, as we mentioned in the beginning, we've not been able to finish this game. This was more of our first impressions of the first, 5 or so hours. And
I don't know. I'm like 10, man.
Maybe I am as well.
I think you are.
I don't really. Well, if you look at my Steam library, I left it on, tabbed out the whole day,
yeah,
it's not accurate. But I'm a little behind him, but we're both well into the second area, and I think I'll be putting a lot of time into it tonight. Katie is closing, so it's just going to be
you're going to have some time.
That's correct.
Yeah, man.
I don't have much more to say about these first two areas, but I'm so excited to dive back in.
Yeah, me too. So we're definitely going to revisit this. Keep an eye out for that. But we're also going to be doing some obscure horror games next week that I'm pretty excited about. We're finally going to bust out Rule of Rose.
Finally.
It's going to be really fun. He has an actual physical copy, so we're gonna sit down,
sitting here on the desk next week,
and play it together. It's going to be a blast.
Very excited.
So we're going to do that. We're going to play a couple other things. We're excited to talk about them and share them with you. It's going to be good stuff.
We want to thank you for joining us again here at Unpatched. If you want to join the community, we want to see you in that Discord. Jump on Patreon. That $2 tier will get you into the Discord. And maybe share your thoughts on Rule of Rose if you've played it before or watched it. I don't care how you played it. If you played it before.
Yeah.
Or Darkwood. You have a chance to jump in now and play a little more with us. We'd like to see your comments. Maybe even share some here on the show.
Yeah, you just saw us go back and forth about, oh, but my night was like this, yours was like that. Yeah. I love games like that where they, every player brings a new story to the table, and I'd love to hear your stories.
The first thing I did in the second area is the last thing you're doing in the second area.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I love games like that. Mm-hmm. It's delightful.
So do join us. I'm sorry. That was very loud. Do join us on Discord, and we will see you again next week to talk about the rest of Darkwood and finally, Rule of Rose.
Yep. Keep it pretty.